I've looked better. I'm not going to look at myself. I'm surviving Novichok. You'll find out. So will I, exactly what it was, but it kills people on contact. And I stay here and live through it. But I look like I feel. I'm not going to look at myself. And this was part of my lawsuit and part of my challenge through the last 6 years and through this terror cell the last 4 years was the degradation and the way I had to present myself to the public as I begged for help. And like I wrote that day, the air is crimson red, blood red in the air, an analogy, just read what I wrote with the fucking kills and the homicides in here. So, all right. What I need to make clear to the public, all right? And remember, I've been poisoned. I'm trying my best to say it and make sense. So thank you, good people around the world. Bear with me. The Russian military is the same as the Chinese military. They're under attack by their politicians, okay? The Israeli military has a small problem that is the same. It's not quite as bad. And you can clearly see with the Israeli government what I'm talking about, and you can clearly see here, and no one wonders about Putin and his allies in the Kremlin. The Kremlin's like half and half. Lavrov is my friend. I can't wait to meet him. I can say that with assurance. So there's good people and bad people. These superpower, world power governments is basically that. We're under attack, and they wanted to take out communists because communists or any former communist are not going to tolerate a neo-Nazi uprising where a whole bunch of white guys with mullet haircuts shoot everybody down with machine guns, because that's what they're really trying to do. They're really trying to do it in Europe, just exactly like they did it before, dude. And that's been on my account for 6 years. Okay, so I don't want people to be afraid of the Russian military. The Russian military never sat around and made chemical weapons, plotting and planning how to kill everybody who was not white, and gathering up all the people who were non-white and who were in organized crime or powerful street gangs, gathering them up to be in their big army. Because that's exactly legally on paper what happened. Okay? The Russian military is like the real military, like China. Everybody knows they run a tight ship and they're a threat. They know what they're doing. They're the real military. You don't really want to fight them. You want to try to find other ways to go about heated moments with China and Russia. This has been the general headline since all of us as adults can remember, ever since we grew up. There's a reason for that. They were protecting themselves because the West has a historical pattern ever since World War I for starting world wars. They launch them out of Europe. The U.S. has a historical pattern for being KKK white nationalist. These world wars launched out of Europe were for neo-Nazi Hitler white nationalism. So after the Second World War, same thing, other countries watched the West because it was only a matter of time before they tried to do it again, which they did. China and Russia are some of the countries that said, along with Israel, we have a plan to protect ourselves. These nations in the West are not going to do this again. We're going to protect ourselves. And when they do it again, we're going to rewrite their constitutions, so on and so forth, so they can't keep attacking the rest of the nations around the world with their world wars they launch out of Europe and the United States. Okay, since 1992, you've heard like a broken record what Bill Clinton did, but it was set up in 1962. And it was set up by the white nationalists in the U.S. military. Now, this has been on my account, so I'm not going to cover the same material again. Not right now. I will anytime if you want to talk to me. And I'll be in better shape with rest and relaxation, and I'll be more clear when I speak. I know I am hard to follow. I am sorry. All right. So do not be afraid of the Russian military. Do not be afraid of the Chinese military. China is not Xi. The Chinese people and the Chinese military are not Xi, hanging out with Iran and Saudi Arabia prince, all these pictures you see, which is on purpose. They wanted those pictures and they want the TV coverage. Xi is a despot. He's a scoundrel and he's infuriated the Chinese military. He's trying to attack the Communist Republic, okay? Because they're the ones who are going to, the military of China and the military of Russia, which you have seen here and you have seen in Europe, are the two superpower militaries that are going to put a stop, along with Israel, but Israel's not a superpower military, okay? These superpower militaries, you can think off the top of your head, are going to put a stop and fight another World War II, another World War I, onto World War III, neo-Nazi fucking overthrow. All right? So everything I've said, you can understand how they have infested NATO. They infested United Nations. There are good people, former NATO employees, former NADAR employees, so on and so forth, Western militaries that had to join up with GRU and Allied forces. Navy SEALs are one of them, in order to protect our country, the United States. Okay, people like me didn't know that. So when I first came in 2017, I thought Russia was attacking us, and I came very bold about it, like, I'm going after Russia. I didn't have anyone telling me anything else. I did the best I could with my abilities to protect the United States, because I clearly knew there was a white nationalist uprising, and it was really bad. They had empowered Mexico. They had empowered the cartel. They were with the Al-Qaeda terrorists. It was really bad. So 6 years later, we're in a terrorist cell that they fiendishly protect. This is the country of Iran, Saudi Arabia. The Palestine is all the same. Yeah, I think you've started to understand that. So did I. I learned that as I was in here, that this had a strong Hamas and Hezbollah fighters. I didn't know all that. That's why the counter-terrorist vets were here. They're the ones that did know all that. I was just able to figure out, as people were being killed, prostitutes, dead bodies were being chopped up, I was able to figure out what I figured out, which is why I put it on the internet, which is why they kept shutting down all my accounts. Okay, all right. I don't want people to be afraid of the Russian military or the Chinese military. They really don't want to take over any countries. What these countries want, who are also with China and Russia, they don't want the United States and these Western governments who are electing all these far-right leaders, and it's happening again, this rising of fascism in Greece and all these places, okay, all these places in Europe. They don't want it. They're not going to have it. They have plans they've had since the 40s to crush and stop the next fascist uprising that leads to this terrible world war where tens and tens of millions of people die. Nobody wants it except these bastards in the West that keep doing the same thing. Here we are. They're trying to launch another fucking neo-Nazi uprising. Okay, that's why they're in the Ukraine with their Russian and Ukrainian organized crime. Organized crime is with the Israeli organized crime. Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is Israeli organized crime. Therefore, that ties him like Jack and Jill to Hamas, to Iran. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to tell the public. Please, if there's anything you listen to, it's this. The Russian military saved my life in this house. The Russian military is not evil trying to gas you in your house. They have no intentions of that, nor do the Chinese. Okay? Nobody's trying to implement communism well, the Russians going to go back more to communism once Putin's out of the picture. But no one's trying to implement that here. I don't know what kind of government has been rewritten here. I know I am a communist speaker. I know I have to take Econ 1 and Econ 2 to know what I'm talking about. That's all I have to do, but I must do that. I don't think this is a full-on communist country, no. And I am not the dictator and I am not the president. I've been trying to get that over. All right. But what they did do, what Israeli military did, the Russian military did, and they saved my life. I love these people. And what the Navy SEALs did, they saved my life too, okay? And they're over there with the Israeli military right now in the Middle East. Those are the good guys. What they did was set it up so these military officials have a strong influence in the government. I call them the president. I'm waiting to see exactly what they did. There's not going to ever be this repeat of history where they can make a war machine here out of the US, degrade their military, degrade their military officers, men and women, decades of degradation. There's mass suicides amongst the vets, all this sorts of evidence to just outright witching. They knew what they were doing, deliberate degradation from the 1962 attack that came within the US military. It was an attack on our sovereign territory, planned and plotted in 1962 to degrade, to dissolve. Now we have our bases with drag queen shows, and everybody knows you can't have drag queen shows on any military base. We know why they did that. Okay, so this sort of repeat of history is never going to happen again. And you have to thank people like me. Yes, you do. And I thank you for your appreciation. But of course, you have to thank the people who you know saved my life in here, who I've been telling you are coming in here with weapons and shooting down fucking terrorists. There are very, very dangerous individuals who crawl into holes in the walls in here. It is because of these military officials, the good guys, that they're not coming to my door or doing God knows what else with weapons that they can't be using on unarmed civilians, but they're ready to do it. And like I've said, they're trying to do it in Europe and the US. They're launching another attempted World War III from these Western nations. All right, so I don't want you to think that the Russian military or the Chinese military, people on my account, are assassins and coming for you and your grandma. This is so wacko, okay? It's so not the case, all right? That's like thinking the Navy SEALs are coming for you and your grandma. You're paranoid. Okay, goodbye.